Broadcasting live from the Cabal coffers on the plane of Dominaria, this is Tap Tap Concede. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Tap Tap Concede. I'm not Graham, I'm James. Graham is busy this week, so I figured I would step in and talk about Magic, because I have opinions and thoughts. And I am joined, by always, Nelson.
Hi there, I'm here.
And Cameron.
Hello as well.
And this show is brought to you by Card Kingdom. CardKingdom.com. They sell cards.
Providing a clean and well-lit place to storm out.
True. That's probably true right now. You can probably actually go there and play Magic safely. That sounds nice.
I mean, or you could just storm out of the store.
Oh, well, but why would you do that?
Right.
Because you never have anything but good experiences.
Yeah, probably because you just want to shop online and you only came into the store to say hi to other Jordan.
Fair.
Mm-hmm. Maybe get a coffee.
Yeah.
Or grilled cheese.
Is their mail-in service so fast that it beats walking into the store and asking for the cards? How far can we go with this joke?
Probably not, but, you know, I'm sure sometimes. Anyways, CardKingdom.com. They've been a sponsor of ours for damn near a decade. We love when we use them. We think you should too. Make sure to throw in that /LRR, cardkingdom.com/LRR. That'll apply our affiliate code, lets them know that we sent you there, and just helps out letting them know that, you know, we're actually encouraging people and convincing you to go and shop there, because you should. Great prices, fast shipping, and if you say loading ready run sent me button please, you will get a button. Currently that button is 5 color bad stuff, which is a great little button. So
every draft deck of mine.
Yeah, exactly. And then of course this podcast is also brought to you by the fine folks over at our Patreon at patreon.com/loading-ready-run. We say it every single episode. We couldn't do this without you. We really appreciate your support. And if you are not a patron and you're thinking, you know what, I could give $5 a month to those fine Canadian folks making content, then head over to patreon.com/loading-ready-run and give us $5 a month, and we'll just keep doing what we're doing, but pay everybody at least $0.10 more a month. Seem fair?
Yeah, I think that's very fair, James.
This is why Beej is a business manager and not me.
Nelson quickly races to his keyboard to let everyone know that this episode wasn't canon.
Anyways, we're here this week to talk about a couple things. We are going to kick off with Organized Play, also known as OP, and then we're going to get into some of the spoilers that have come out over the last week, which include both Modern Horizons 2 and Adventures in the Forgotten Realms sets, so we can take a look at what those sets have to offer. But let's kick off with the OP changes, which I will preface by saying WotC has done, and for good reason, in my opinion. WotC has done a pretty classic WotC thing, which is they've announced something, but it's more kind of like an announcement of an announcement. It's more like, hey, this is going to change. We're not ready to tell you what it is, but now you know. And for 99.9% in this case, it's kind of a pain in the ass, right? Like nobody likes getting told, hey, do you want to hear some really cool, interesting news? And you're like, yes. And they're like, cool, we'll get back to you in 6 to 8 months. Like nobody likes that. But I will say right off the bat, the reason that it was done like this, the reason that it was talked about is because what is changing affects a bunch of people, and by a bunch of people, I mean everybody in the MPL and Rivals, dramatically, right? This is their livelihood. This is how they make a living, and it's going to change. And it's going to change in a way that everything that they know and enjoy and take advantage of right now will not be the case, you know, in 18 months or whatever the timeline is. I can't remember. So they needed to make sure that, you know, major life decisions were not being made on outdated information. So for everybody outside of that system, it's kind of annoying because you're once again coming to us and telling us, hey, this is going to happen. We're going to change everything here. But we don't actually know what it is yet, and we can't tell you, which, again, it sucks. But this is where we're at. Now, what are those changes? They basically announced that in, again, I think the 2021-2022 season will be the transition out of the current rival/MPL league OP structure. So they're moving completely away from that. And I'm not going to get into what that all is, if you don't know what the MPL is or the rivals leagues are, look into it. Nobody can really tell you what it is. It's very complicated, but what it does do is it pays a whole bunch of people a salary to play Magic professionally, and that is all going away. And that was announced about a week ago via a article called Transitions in Getting Back to Gathering, posted on the magic.gg website. I would recommend you go and read it and check it out. It's very, very broad strokes. There's no any real details in here. For that, I would also recommend you go and watch Blake's weekly MTG from the same week. If you go to the YouTube channel, you can find it. I think he did a really good job just talking to the community for an hour, trying to get as much information out there as he possibly could. But the long and short of it is they want to get back to more what we had 5 years ago than what we had 5 months ago, which is to say, put a focus back on in-person events, stop focusing on these, 24 or 36 or however many people are in the Rivals and MPL league, and start to redistribute that to the greater community of Magic players. And it's a big change, and it's not going to happen overnight. And it's not even going to happen this year or even really next year, or late next year probably is when we'll start seeing this change back. But
yeah, 2021-2022 season for the MPL is going to be the last one, so it'll be on into next year. I'm not entirely sure. Sorry, we mentioned this. No one really knows. It's hard to keep up with all the changes that they've already been making the last few years, but I don't know exactly when the MPL league season ends, but it's sometime next year. It's probably the summer.
See, this is a problem. I don't know if we're currently in the 2020-2021 season or if we're in the 2021-2022 season.
And we're Magic podcasters, so that is a symbol of why this is happening partly, right? Like the league weekends are going to stop very soon, possibly immediately. And I think it's partly because they're not super engaging just at the league weekend with everyone streaming their own gameplay, and you can watch 30 different streams but not one, and it's a little disjointed. It didn't grab a lot of people.
So I mean, I don't want to talk too much about the MPL or Rivals or any of that stuff. I guess I'm just curious to hear what you two have to say, and I certainly have some thoughts about trying to get back to more focused on in-person play. That being said, digital is not going anywhere. They've made that very clear. It's not like we're losing arena or high-level arena. It's still going to be a part of, the 5 pillars that Blake talked about in his video. What we are losing is the concept of somebody getting paid a salary to play Magic professionally, which is unique in the sense that it's only been around for a couple of years. Before that, there was nothing like that. People were professional Magic players because they were good at the game. They managed to win or, prize and money enough to make enough money, or they wrote articles, or they streamed, or they did draft videos or whatever.
A lot of them were lawyers.
And a lot of them were lawyers or poker players. But I guess I'm kind of curious. I guess what I wanted to talk about was just what would you like to see in the new world of OP that we're going to see in a year or two? What kind of stuff would you like to see come back? What kind of stuff would you like to see not come back? Is there some new stuff that you've been thinking about recently that you would like to see more of? Nelson, we'll start with you.
Well, you mentioned the word distribute, and I think one of the things we haven't seen is kind of the balance sheet exactly of Wizards, OP's budget and how it's being spent. We sort of know by consequence, we can kind of put it together, what they put more money into, what they put less money into over the years, and how that's changed. But 2019 was the $10 million prize pool or whatever year of Magic, right? That it was supposed to be this new, bigger than ever situation of where the OP budget was bigger, and they were talking about it, and they were hyping that up. But I had the chance to speak with a pro who'd been around playing for years and years at the burger place next to Grand Prix Portland, because he just came over and hung out with the judges. He knew someone, and so I was sitting right next to him and talked about this, and I thought he was gonna be really excited, and he was less nah, actually what they did was they just moved the money that they used to spend on plane tickets into the prize pool for attendance at these events. So it's sort of a sneaky accountant's trick, and they can only do it once. And I think if they're saying now we're going to take the money that we used to pay the MPL and we're going to put it into prizes for tournaments, on the surface, that's fine. Like, no, you can't have a reliable gig. That only, the MPL, salaries, as you mentioned, only lasted for a couple years. But that doesn't mean you can't still have pro Magic players like we did 5-10 years ago who just show up at tournaments, win money, and use that money to pay to get to the next tournament and pay their bills. And that can be a thing. It's just, it still remains a question of whether or not an equal amount of money will be coming out of OP or how they're going to change that. And we have no idea. Also, the like pro points club thing they had before the MPL, like where you had pro points. And if you did, there was these thresholds for how much money you would get for appearance fees so that you did have a semblance of a salary. Like you at least would be able to plan like, okay, if I hit these 3 GPs and I get average performance for me, I'll lock up silver or whatever. And then that means I only need to get this much scratch together so that if I can get to the next pro tour, then they pay back the cost of my flight plus that month's bills or whatever. They could do this budgeting because there was a system in place. And right now, I don't know if there's any pros that do. I read Brad Nelson's article and it's like, okay, they told us this stuff a while ago and we had to keep our lips tight about it until this week. So I don't know if now they know that like, okay, there is going to be something where if you do X well, then you're going to guaranteed be able to get that much money for that year or whatever. So if they have something to replace that, it certainly makes the notion of being a professional Magic player easier. But there were also these tweets that said they told us to understand that the notion of the professional Magic player was going to go away. So there probably is going to be nothing like that.
I do want to say that I read that more as because the idea of a professional Magic player 5 years ago there was too much variance there, right? Like you couldn't really consider yourself like you weren't on a salary, like you weren't guaranteed to make whatever 55 or 60 or whatever the heck the MPL contract was. You weren't guaranteed that money, right? Like you had to go out every weekend and grind those GPs and make sure that you stayed on the train to make sure that you were doing well at these pro tours and making some money there so that if you had a few months where you weren't putting up the same kind of performance. I mean, it's very similar. It's funny, like the way that Magic used to work was very similar to the way golf works, right? Like you make it on the tour, you get your tour card, now you can start coming to tournaments. But if you want to get to the bigger tournaments, you have to qualify for those tournaments. And if you can qualify for those tournaments and do well there, then you have a lifetime, like for instance with golf, if you win the Masters in golf, arguably the biggest tournament of the year, the one that everybody wants to win. If you win the Masters, you get a lifetime invite back to the Masters. You are always welcome to come back, which is very similar to, the
Hall of Fame, right?
The Hall of Fame.
Right.
Or to a lesser degree, old pro tours where if you won a pro tour, you got to come back the next time. Right? Like you automatically qualified for the next pro tour. Now, the thing that has always made Magic, and this is another question that I'm wildly curious to hear what your thoughts are on this, is can Magic be an esport like people want to think Magic can be an esport like? Because like when I think of esport, I think of League of Legends, I think of Dota, I think of Counter-Strike, I think of the International, I think of League of Legends championships and stuff like that. I'm thinking about massive arena and millions of viewers and literally sometimes tens of millions of dollars on the line. Like I don't think Magic can ever get to that point. Am I alone here on that one?
I don't know if it's possible for me to see from the inside, right? I don't know how esoteric Magic actually is.
Right.
Like, I've seen some plays in Magic that made me, like, full-on Pog champ, right? Very excited. Watching some, like, sick tech cook-off is really great. And then I watch, League of Legends or turn on the International when it's running, and I have no idea what's going on. And, like, what's the experience like for an outside viewer? How accessible is Magic? How accessible are those, like, very exciting moments in the game? And I don't know. I want to advocate for Magic, but maybe it's too weird, or maybe it's too, I don't want to say technical or complex, but inscrutable.
Yeah. Sorry. Long answer, trying to collect my thoughts here. I don't think it's impossible, but I do think it would be very difficult, and we still aren't there yet. Magic is a hard game to watch. Let's not even talk about the beginner, like if you don't already play Magic and you're trying to be entertained by watching Magic, let's give that one away. Like, I don't know when that happens, but just say, just you're trying to appeal to Magic players and you want to make a watchable program. Certainly, like, I've been in the commentator booth on the Magic Fests and online, and I've done the commentary for our Highlander shows, and I really enjoy the commentary job, but I think it is challenging. I think it's really hard to offer something that's fun for the viewer to watch and keep it fun, and a lot of the weight falls on the commentator if your plan is to do it live. I think you could potentially, like, with enough budget, right, you could try to have a situation where you're recording the games and then you're like very quickly editing them, and then you send out a stream of like some just full on live feed when it was, or no editing when the pace was quick enough, and then occasionally even you have to pause it and explain something if the pace is too fast, but you try to make sure that it's even so that you have a regular watching experience. Because right now, and like certainly from the outset, I think the attempt to make Magic a watchable esport, it's just the same as making chess a watchable esport, right? It's like, are you prepared to watch a show where two people think and don't talk?
Right.
Because there's a lot of that in Magic, and there isn't necessarily the clock. Now, Arena brought us the rope. Other TCGs, Hearthstone and Eternal and one. I don't know who thought of the turn timer first. It wasn't Magic, but someone at some point was like, you know what? You should only be allowed to have so much time on your turn, and that helps. That certainly makes it a bit more watchable. But yeah, to turn Magic into something that's a real spectator product that we can really firmly stand behind, because there's been lots of great shows. Like the Pro Tour have done great production quality, had really fun casters and commentators, had really cool graphics. The music keeps getting better. I've been really liking the background Pro Tour music, but still at its heart, it's like, broadcasting a game of Magic is tough. I think we still have a long way to go to try to stand next to games that play in real time, like League of Legends or StarCraft 2 or any of the shooters, because the real-time games for the viewer offer like, these very exciting swings very regularly. Really exciting moments happen every 3 minutes. So yeah, it's tough. I think you should start by appealing to the hardcore fans and not trying to make it too accessible for someone who doesn't know how to play. Although I know that's the dream. I know you want to be able to, like, from the position of the person selling this product, of selling the show to watch, you'd like to be able to get as many people as possible. But I think you should probably start from just make a watchable Magic tournament for Magic players. And even still, it's tough.
That's where I get hung up, is that we have arguably been trying to do that forever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we have done nothing but try to create a enjoyable watching experience for the enfranchised Magic player. Not even like the casual Magic player. I'm talking about an enfranchised, know what's going on, understands the intricacies of, modern versus standard Magic player. And if we haven't got it at this point, I would argue that I don't think we ever will. And here's the thing, I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think it means that Magic isn't that kind of game.
Yeah, maybe we should be looking at baseball instead of chess.
Magic is unlike any other, quote unquote esports game, where, and certainly unlike any other of the card games, because it has this physical and digital presence, right? And I feel like that has been, it's certainly in the last couple of years with the rise and success of Arena, has been its greatest success. And, fair point, elephant in the room, COVID has really kind of messed things up for the last 14 months, and probably will do so for another, several, if we're lucky. But once we get out of it, I feel like taking proper advantage of the fact that you have both a strong digital and physical presence is something that, could be super beneficial to the game. Because again, like, I look at something like, we'll keep going back to League of Legends. I will admit fully that I don't understand how their qualifying process works. I don't know the different levels and leagues of play there are in that game, but what I do know is that, you don't just, like, there aren't weekly tournaments, ignoring COVID, there aren't weekly tournaments held around the world like Magic Fests or GPs back in the day, where if you spike that tournament, like, you could walk in off the street, haven't played Magic in a year, don't pay attention to the competitive side of things, sit down and go all the way to the top 8 and win this thing. And all of a sudden now you're going to the Pro Tour. Like, there's no other game that really does that. And I think that's something that we should be really embracing and leaning into, but also understanding that by doing so, maybe we can't have that big, flashy, million viewer, multi-million dollar esports game.
Right.
Like maybe that just doesn't exist with Magic.
Compared to other games, I would say Magic has like so many points of entry that can lead to gigantic prizes and accolades and success. But yeah, a lot of other games, you have 2 or 3 opportunities a year to maybe try to do that. And you have to get to the specific place to play in the tournament, right? Whereas Magic has like Grand Prix and trying to be in every region of the world multiple times a year. In that sense, it's great. On the other hand, if we take away the Pro Tour, it's like, okay, now what's the prize exactly?
And that's the thing. We don't know if they're like, I still think there will be high level competitive Magic. They've said as much. We don't know what it's going to be. And that makes having this conversation a little harder, right? Like not knowing what the plan is makes talking about the plan a little tricky, but I still feel like we're going to see a good number of tournaments a year that, really feel like the sort of the top tier. But, for my money, if we were ever going to make this game work as a proper big league esport, that was what we just tried to do with the MPL and Rivals League. Now, it was convoluted, it was confusing, it changed too many times for its own good, but the bones were there and it never really found its footing. I don't know if it could under significantly better management, but I still don't think so.
Honestly, I just found like competitive play extremely confusing. Like I mean, the games are fine, but following the structure of it wore me out. Right? Like I still have no idea what the feed is like into top tier competitive play. And, at this point, I'm afraid to ask.
Yeah, I think that's telling because I believe the goal of the MPL was to make that a little simpler for the viewer, right? Like, hey, you can watch Jessica Estevan, you can watch Ali Warfield, you can watch Javier Dominguez. You'll know they'll be there next week, right? And we can build stories and we can, root for them week after week. And we were hoping that would help ease exactly that problem of just like needing to follow what the point structure was. And honestly, I think they did okay at that. Like I did get somewhat familiar with who was in the MPL over the course of its existence. I still didn't know how exactly a new person would enter, like what the exact threshold was and which tournaments or how you get the points to get into rivals or whatever. I understood by the nature of it being very small that it was extremely difficult and very unlikely for anyone to make it. That was clear, but that's also okay if you're willing to acknowledge that there's a value to having a small club of players in that league so that, each person in that league comes up in the standings regularly and you can be a fan of Autumn Burchett and you'll regularly see them. You can know that if Blue Tempo is good in the format, they're probably going to play it. So yeah, the fact that was actually a win and this is still happening and we all acknowledge that the MPL wasn't as engaging as it could be, or like it was still confusing, that's maybe telling. And that really says that maybe the odds are kind of stacked against Magic being a successful esport, like you're saying, James. So I think that's a very fair take. Maybe it's time to stop thinking about the viewer and just have the game serve the player, because we all play Magic, right? Like,
I don't think you need to stop entirely. I think you just need to admit the fact that this is as good as it's going to get, right? Like the biggest this is going to get is 10 or 15,000 people watching, a Rivals weekend, or 25 to 30,000 people watching a Pro Tour, or 50,000 people watching the World Championship or whatever like that. Like I think that's fine. I mean, of course, for a multi-million dollar company owned by a multi-billion dollar company, that's easier said than done, and they will probably always be trying to figure out ways to make it happen. I don't know. Like I also do wonder if the last year and a half hadn't been like it has been, would we have seen as much pushback against the MPL? If people were able to just get out of their homes and actually go to Magic Fest, or hell, even just go to their local game stores and play Magic, maybe there wouldn't be so much attention wouldn't have been placed on the MPL to basically carry all of competitive Magic, all professional Magic. Like, and that's the thing, right? Is that there is a difference between competitive Magic and professional Magic. And for the last year and a half, we've basically only had professional Magic. And I do wonder sometimes if that, played into just how poorly it's sort of done over the last year. Okay, so moving away from this, I guess.
Let me land on one more thing, if you don't mind. Just as you described, it's like, that could be fine. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like trying to be a very fair and kind of harsh critic of Magic as an esport. And then I remember, like, honestly, any Pro Tour weekend from before all this, or even during, like, when there's, I didn't know what they're called anymore, when there's Mythic Championships, just let me watch the matches, like paper matches with Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth, or Riley or LSV, and then, flip back to Maria or Rich Hagon, like doing the news desk, and then there's a little commercial that shows the standings. Like, honestly, those shows were like somewhat simple and easy to follow, and it was fun for me. Like, I did enjoy those. So it's like at that level of like being part of the clique of 20,000 people or whatever that watch these things, it's like, yeah, I mean, if we can afford to just keep doing that, and we don't need it to be a million people watching Twitch at the same time or whatever, like, then yeah, we can, I hope, look forward to more successful shows like that.
So, I mean, what kind of stuff would you two like to see return in this new system? Which, again, we still don't know what it is. We have no insider information. And also, as people who have experienced organized play in maybe a different kind of way than a lot of people, as content creators heavily enfranchised in this game, but not playing it at a competitive level, we kind of have this unique view and experience of OP over the last decade now. And I'm curious, what has worked for everybody, what hasn't, what would you like to see come back? Is there stuff that never existed that you would like to see exist?
Cameron, do you want to go first?
Well, I mean, honestly, I've never paid that much attention to competitive and professional Magic.
Okay.
I just never found it very compelling. That being said, I guess like what you need is you have to ask what the purpose is, right? There's that line about a system's purpose is what it does, right? So what is professional Magic actually doing? Like what function is it fulfilling? And then either decide whether that's what it needs to be doing or whether it wants to be doing something else.
But even ignoring, like, putting aside the idea of professional, or even, and I'll lump it in with high level competitive, which I believe Blake referred to as aspirational, sort of the aspirational pillar. Even as somebody who doesn't necessarily follow those aspects of the game, you still used to, play organized play, sanctioned tournaments at Yellow Jacket. You went to Magic Fests and GPs and you played there. Do you enjoy playing at that level, or like what kind of stuff in that range? The kitchen table zone, the goes to a Magic Fest and plays in side events kind of stuff. Like, that's where you're pretty comfortable and happy.
Yeah, I really enjoy the side events. I will sign up for the main event and play, like, until I'm out, which, is usually 2 matches, but it's not why I play Magic, really. What would get me more into high level play is more diversity in deck building, to be honest.
All right.
Right? Like, that's the kind of the fundamental stuff that I'm on right now. When I tune in or come into the office and people are watching, like, the weekend's enormous tournament and all the players are on the same deck, I kind of lose interest in the game.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What would really interest me is seeing, like, those side techs, right? Like, show me something spicy, right? Doesn't just have to be, I don't even know where I want to go with this. This isn't useful information for like Wizards, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, it kind of is. I mean, I don't think it's wrong to say a big reason why I don't get into this area of the game is because, to put it bluntly, you're not doing a good enough job making these cards.
Yeah, like, I guess I don't find the gameplay compelling in competitive tiers. That would be my problem, right? Like, I find the gameplay in limited much more interesting than I do in, like, modern or standard.
Yeah.
Just because the deck builds all converge.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, years ago, they had all limited Pro Tours.
Yes. And I realized as I was saying that was, a thing that existed.
But usually, partly because of the first thing you said, I think usually the limited Pro Tour kind of like viewer attendance was way lower than constructed because, and I think Wizards knows, a lot of the reasons why people like watching the Pro Tour coverage or the high level aspirational Magic is to get deck techs, right? Like, they want to see what the best constructed decks are. That's useful core stuff, even if watching the whole game play out isn't always that much fun.
Well, yeah, like I remember seeing, God, back in Dragon's Maze's end deck tech, right? Like that was really interesting. Like examining the meta and saying like, well, the control finisher right now is not Morphling. Was it Morphling?
It
No,
was
wasn't
Etherling.
Etherling, right? And like, how do you beat Etherling? Well,
right.
This is how you beat
You
Etherling.
need a card that says you win the game.
Yeah. Right. It's like, oh, that's an interesting tactic, right? Or not even a tactic, a strategy.
So if I can sum up, we have 2 out of 3 members of this podcast right now. They're sort of like, yeah, I don't know if I care what they do with the Pro Tour, right? And I think that's like another elephant in the room that's like wasn't part of the announcement about transitions in esports, but is kind of like parallel to like last year being the year of Commander and like more and more Commander products coming out, and WotC kind of acknowledging more and more over the years, like, okay, yeah, most of the community doesn't care about competition. They want to have fun with their friends, and like, they might be playing at a local game store, but they're not really keen on the prizes or keen on the like path to more and more stressful tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm the third party, and the division is, across the whole Magic community, I doubt it's even a third. It's probably like less than a third of us for however your metric is. If you've paid money for Magic cards in the last 3 years, like maybe 10% of us are competitive players, I'll guess. I'm not sure. But yeah, I would like to see in-store tournaments that lead to something else. I would like to see Grand Prix main events with prizes and kind of some trappings of celebrity, I guess. Like it'd be nice if the top 8 of the Grand Prix or the Magic Fest were regularly, done in a whole feature match area, and you could view a stream of that, or you could at least view some coverage of it. And yeah, along with that, it'd be nice if there was a path from the Magic Fest up to some sort of Pro Tour that at least, or Pro Tour like event that at least made it exciting to win that prize. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it for me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I was saying earlier in the show about taking advantage of the fact that you have both, a strong physical and digital game. I would love to see high level, maybe even if it was just the World Championship. I love the idea of there being one tournament a year that is the biggest stage there is.
Right.
I don't know when in the year that happens, but I like the idea of a season of Magic that exists in paper, it exists in digital, both arena and online, if they want to continue to, use online Magic Online as a competitive outlet for the game, where, 16, 18, 24, however many people come together qualifying as they will throughout the year to play in a paper and digital event. And what I would love to see is for the paper side, that to be the limited aspect. I loved watching 8 players sit down at a table and physically draft cards together. I loved seeing the judge call the time, pick up your cards, count them, pick, pass. You have 25 seconds, right? Like that. I love it. It's fun. And it's just like, it's what Magic is. And the idea of mixing both paper and arena together in like this massive end of the year $1 million tournament that feeds from all the way from your local game store to people who are playing in Magic Online Opens to the mocks over on online. That's what I want to see, with other big, small, like bigger tournaments scattered throughout the year that feed from either, again, in paper or over on arena, kind of stuff like that. Like taking the concept of the arena open and being like, all right, did you 7-0 this thing? Did you win that $2,000? Cool. You're into that, qualifies you into another bigger tournament that happens every quarter, right? And that qualifies you for were you in a limited Magic Online or Magic Arena Open? Cool. You're in the limited, the quarterly limited Magic Online Open Championship, right? And again, those feed to this big end of the year tournament is what I would personally love to see. I'd also love to see the return of the Hall of Fame. And I know that this is something that they were talking about last year, about turning it into more of a baseball kind of Hall of Fame. And for anybody who doesn't know, baseball Hall of Fame is the kind of Hall of Fame who recognizes everybody in the game, from the players to the managers to, to the reporters,
casters,
to casters. Yeah. Like they're all there. If you interact with a game of baseball in a meaningful way for the length of your career, then there's a chance that you can be put in that baseball Hall of Fame. And I know it's really easy for somebody to say, well, you're just saying that because you want to be in the Magic Hall of Fame. And, I would be lying to say I wouldn't, love the opportunity, because who wouldn't? But I think acknowledging the Magic is just a game full of so many different kinds of people, in terms of the people who make it, in terms of the people who play it, in terms of the people who create the content around it or cast it or whatever. There are a lot of people who are deserving to be, enshrined in that Hall of Fame sort of thing. So that's kind of where I'm coming at.
Yeah, I like that a lot, honestly.
Perfect. It's settled then. Dear whoever from WotC is listening to this, which I'm sure you are, you may take that deal and run with it.
Also, hit me in the comments if you know if there's anyone who like sold nachos at baseball games and they're in the Hall of Fame because they're the best at it. Like,
oh, that'd be great.
Right? Or hot dogs, I guess, is probably the more appropriate food.
Or pretzels, or
beer.
Who has the best? You're 8 rows in from the stairs, and this guy can get you a pretzel and a hot beer in 3 seconds, and you're like, damn.
Yeah, got my vote.
Yeah, you got me exactly. You got my vote. So yeah, I mean, I think we can leave it there for organized play, and we can chat about some of these spoilers that came out. But I will say that I would love to. I don't tend to weed my way into the comments of YouTube videos, but for this one, I will definitely make an exception. I would love to hear people's thoughts on what you think of where you'd like organized play to go. I don't go down into the comments and complain about where it's been or where it's at right now. We know it's changing. What do you want to see it change to? Let us know in the comments. I'm genuinely interested to see what you all have to say. So by all means, go do that. Now, it is, what day is it today? It is the 21st of May.
May. What?
Yeah.
By the time this comes out, it will be the 24th of May, and the Modern Horizons 2 pre-release will have been announced. It will actually have been announced about 4 hours from when we are recording this. So that is coming up on June 2nd, next Wednesday. It is happening on a Wednesday. This is not a permanent change, but I will say that for Modern Horizons, we will be doing a Wednesday PPR because the date got pushed back 1 week, but the digital release dates didn't. So what would make sense to most people would be like, oh, it got pushed back by a week. You're going to be doing that on June 4th. But if we did that, it would already be live and playable on Magic Online. And it's a lot less enticing for people to come watch us play it when they can literally just open up McGo and play it themselves. Mm-hmm. So that's why we're doing it on Wednesday. So please do tune into that. It's all the people you know and love, with the exception, not that you don't both know and love these two people, but a little bit of a swap out. Adam is taking this PPR off, and we actually have Jeremy White, who some of you may know from various streams over the years, but also one of the hosts of North 100, joining us for his first PPR, which is really exciting. So
yeah, welcome to the PPR, coach.
Yeah, look forward to that. Again, coming up on June 2nd. In the meantime, we had some brand new spoilers over the last couple days, mostly all yesterday during weekly MTG. And which cards are y'all excited to talk about? I mean, we could fire off Dakin.
Yeah,
Daikon.
I said Dakon back in the day.
Dakon. So this is Dakon Shadow Slayer. This is a 0 loyalty planeswalker that casts for white, blue, black, enters a battlefield with a number of loyalty counters on him equal to the number of lands you control. So theoretically, 3 at minimum, but not necessarily. +1, Surveil 2. Can somebody remind me what Surveil 2 means?
It's like Scry, but graveyard instead of bottom. So look at the top 2 cards of your library. You may put any number of them into your graveyard and then put the remaining ones back on top in an order of your choice.
Thank you. -3, exile target creature. Love to see it.
It's not a bad ability.
-6, you may put an artifact card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield.
So all 3 abilities, available right away, given 6 lands in play.
I mean, yeah.
Pretty cool card, gotta say. I liked the first Dakon card a lot. I really appreciate that they're a planeswalker now, and they still have loyalty equal to the lands you control, just like Dakon used to have power toughness equal to your lands.
So Dakon, a reminder, Dakon Blackblade from Legends originally was a star that casts for 2 black, blue, blue, white, and it reads, the stars below equal the number of lands you control, also known as power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control now.
That was such a great album, The Stars Below.
The Stars Below, yeah. Yeah, this card, the Planeswalker is real spicy, though.
Congratulations, Dakon, you made it. And also bringing back Richard Kane Ferguson to do the artwork.
Yeah, Richard Kane Ferguson doing the artwork again. Fantastic. This is a sentimental home run for me, but also looks like a pretty good card.
Yeah. No, all I want to do is leave 2 blue up and plus Dakon all day.
I mean, how many Planeswalkers can be cast and alt immediately?
There's a few. Sarkhan the Mad, I think, comes to mind. The Nissa that has X in her casting cost.
Right, yeah. I guess any X mana. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Dakon's not the first, but it is pretty rare. Usually the feel of the Planeswalkers is you got to use the plus if you want to use the big minus.
Yeah. What else did we got? We got a brand new Suspend Tutor.
Yeah, I was going to say this. Profane Tutor. no casting cost, suspend 2 for 1 black. And it's DT, right? Search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, and shuffle. How good will it feel to cascade into this? Or will that feel bad? Who can say?
I mean, do you like cascading into draw card spells?
Yes.
Okay, then it's going to feel fine. It's going to feel totally great. If you're always trying to cascade into stuff that affects the board, because that's what you're used to doing with your cascade decks, then it won't feel so good. But yeah, this card's, I don't know. I think it could be just abjectly horrible, but might be fine. I don't think it's going to be amazing.
Wheeler tweeted this card with the gif of the Grinch doing his Grinchy smile. Mm-hmm. So I assume that when I see that, I just assume it means it's probably going to be good in Canadian Highlander.
Oh yeah, it gets into garbage platter for sure. Like when you're playing the tutor tribal with a bunch of done combos and it's just another like pretty sweet tutor. Yeah, it definitely gets into that deck. I think it's gonna be somewhat playable Canadian Highlander for sure.
All right.
I just don't know, like, that deck's kind of a hot mess.
Garbage platter, a hot mess?
You don't say.
Right? Yeah, so it's kind of like, it's one of these things where it's like, is this card bad? Yes. Will Wheeler win games with it? Of course.
Fair.
Also, should look very handsome in foil. Courtesy of the Richard Kane Ferguson art.
More Richard Kane Ferguson art, more pictures of Dak on Blackblade. I'm here for it.
It does get the old border treatment, the old frame treatment as well, and it looks real good. Real good. What else have we got? We got a card here called Grief. This is a 3/2 elemental incarnation for 2 black. It has Menace, and it says, when Grief enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card, and it has Evoke, which is exile a black card from your hand. Is this card any good?
The tweets are this next to an ephemerate, which you can do on turn 1, right? Like you play a white source, you exile a black card to get Grief on the battlefield, and then you ephemerate it before. The way Evoke works is it's 2 triggers, or sorry, it's always on creatures with abilities, but it's just a trigger that says, if you paid the Evoke cost, sacrifice this. But it's a trigger that goes on the stack along with, and usually underneath, the other beneficial trigger of the elemental with Evoke. So you just let the first one resolve and then ephemerate it or blink it somehow, and then you get the trigger again. But then this time, when it comes back to the battlefield after being blunk, it doesn't have an Evoke trigger because it wasn't cast for its Evoke cost, so it just hangs out. So you get your 3/2 Menace, and you exile 2 cards from their hand, or make them discard 2 cards, and then you're out a black card and you cast your ephemerate.
I mean, that seems pretty good.
Yeah, it's a pretty good turn 1. Yeah, let me tell you.
Also you've got a 3/2
with Menace.
Yeah, you've taken 2 of their cards, so just the 3/2 on its own might win the game. On the following turn, your ephemerate's going to rebound. So like, yeah, you paid a cost and you're down the ephemerate, but they're down 3 cards, and now you have a 3/2 Menace that can attack on turn 3. It's pretty sweet. It's a pretty sweet opener. I think we're going to see it a bit on the modern tournament tables. Another powerful one that hit the previews is Rishidan Dockhand, which is a little homage to Rishidan Port, not a card we've seen in modern before.
Getting out the Rishi D.
Yeah, the Rishi D. That's right. 1 blue mana for a 1/2 merfolk with Island Walk, and pay 1 generic and tap this to tap target land. I like this card a lot.
This card also has the old frame treatment as well. Yeah, this card seems pretty cool, actually. So Rishidan Port was just tap for colorless, 1 tap target land, right?
Yes. So same ability, and instead of being a land that taps for a generic or a colorless, this is a 1 mana 1/2 Island Walk, which means maybe a little faster you can get them down. Like you can potentially lock someone out a bit quicker. But yeah, I mean, has the utility of killing your opponent sometimes.
I mean, that's always nice. I hear that's what you're supposed to do in this game. We got a white dragon, timeless dragon, 3 white for a 5/5 dragon. Flying, plain cycling 2, and Eternalize for 2 white. And just a reminder for that, Eternalize is exile this card from your graveyard, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 4/4 black zombie dragon with no mana cost, Eternalize only as a sorcery. Kind of a neat card.
Yeah.
Seems like it's going to be real good and limited.
Did they change the templating of that reminder text? Didn't it used to say, except it's a 4/4 black zombie in addition to its other types? I feel like that's pretty nitpicky and doesn't matter. Decent card for limited for sure.
Yeah, I would plain cycle this on 2 and then Eternalize it on 4.
Yeah, for sure. Another tutor, Unmarked Grave. Saw last night that this card was named by Aaron Forsyth on Twitter, and he was pretty happy that it actually stuck, because apparently that doesn't happen very often. But 1 in a black, search your library for a non-legendary card, put that card into your graveyard, then shuffle.
Okay, so we've got a strictly worse Entomb, but an Entomb that you can play in Modern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like can't get Elish Norn, can't
get Griselbrand.
Can't get Griselbrand. I was like, should I mention Griselbrand? Is Griselbrand still banned in Modern? Grizzlebrand. This is where I am with this game right now.
No, Grizzlebrand's a strategy in Modern. Yeah.
Okay, great. But yeah, no, I mean, it's Entomb. What's not to love? You know what it can get? Past In Flames.
Oh, yeah. It can also get another P card, Platinum Empyrean, if you want to go that route. It can get a Blightsteel Colossus. Or no, it can't, sorry. I mean, it can get a Blightsteel Colossus, but then...
Yeah, if you need to shuffle.
Or you can just get the mere Battle Ball.
Yeah.
The fact that it can get non-creatures is pretty sweet. I like the idea of going and getting Past In Flames a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, could you put Bridge from Below?
You sure could. That's a non-legendary card. Good call.
All right, well, let's talk about 2 more cards here. Thrasta, Tempest's Roar, 10 green for a 7/7 dinosaur. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's failed the vanilla test. But this spell costs 3 less to cast for each other spell cast this turn. It has Trample. It has Haste. It has Trample over Planeswalkers, which does exactly what you think it does.
Yep. The community asked for it for years. This is like an ability that was made by people asking questions at Yellow Jacket.
Yeah. And it has Hexproof as long as it entered the battlefield this turn.
Thrasta's going to break some hearts.
Yeah, and some heads.
Yeah.
I'm wildly excited to hear, because I do the card reader and tech and stuff for North 100. I'm very excited to hear Jeremy's reaction to this card, because he always seems to react poorly to green cards that seem wildly overpowered and can't really be interacted with. And at least on the turn that this comes down, which might be the only turn that really matters at this point. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. We got Counterspell. It's fine. Just hold up 2 blue.
Yeah, exactly.
It can be countered, but it's also kind of good against counters, because if you can just cast 2 other threats that turn, if they counter both of them, then you can play only 2 green for this one.
Yep.
Because it's not spells you cast, right? So it's kind of sweet against counter spells.
I mean, if the green deck is playing 3 threats a turn, I think the control deck is in more trouble than just like what one Counterspell can fix.
I didn't even read. Yeah, sorry, what Nelson just said. I didn't even think about that. It's cast this turn, not by you.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's, you cast a spell, they counter a spell, and all of a sudden this thing costs 6 colorless less to cast.
Yeah, I mean, this is Stormosaurus.
Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely works if you are storming too.
Yeah.
It's legendary, though, so you can't have a plan of like putting 3 of them in your hand, casting 4 spells that make mana, and then dropping these on the board, but it's still pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, one last card. Let's talk about Flametongue Yearling. This is a red 2/1 caboo, which has multi-kicker for 2, and it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each time it was kicked, and when it enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature. So this is uncommon. You know, this is obviously not as good as its bigger brother or parent, I suppose, but this seems pretty cool.
I think not as good isn't fair, actually.
You don't think so?
No, yeah. Well, look at it without any multi-kicker. How into this card are you? Because there's a card similar to 2/1 for some mana cost. It deals 2 damage to target creature is what it says on it, that we play in Canadian Highlander, at least up until fairly recently, especially in the your deck is all creatures with enter the battlefield abilities and you play pod, called, I want to say just Fire Imp. I think that's what it's called. It's like 2 generic and 1 red for a 2/1 that deals 2 damage. It might be able to do any target, but still.
Yeah, from Portal?
Yeah, it's in there to hit creatures. So this is like, the cheap version of this effect. Flametongue Caboo is often in this deck too. Flametongue Caboo is a very powerful card, and it's easier to cast than this. But you have to pay 4 for it, or you have to sacrifice a 3-drop to go get it with pod or whatever. It's a 4-drop, whereas this is like a new, way sweeter Fire Imp. Plus, it on the other side, like if you have a ton of mana to put into it, it can do things that Mama Flametongue Caboo can't. Right, like where you
live through an empty board.
Yeah, exactly. Kill their Primeval Titan if you have enough mana to do that.
Also, because Flametongue Caboo, if you don't have a creature on the board, Flametongue Caboo just kills itself, right?
Yeah, same here.
Same here, right?
Yeah, sorry, I missed the bottom line where it's damage equal to its power. This can never live through an empty board.
That's right. Yeah, no, it always just targets itself and dies the same way you got to do with Flametongue Caboo. In fact, that's like an old trick where you can sacrifice your own creature if you only have one in response to them casting the Flametongue Caboo, and then the Flametongue Caboo enters and has to burn itself up with its fiery breath. I gotta breathe all this garlic on someone.
This is also another one of the cards that has the showcase sketch.
Ooh.
The sketch version of the cards. And I don't know I haven't actually really looked, so I haven't seen what the reaction to these particular showcase cards have been, but they're not doing it for me.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is.
I like teasing them about it, but it's cool. I don't know. It's another thing.
I think I dig the art. I think what is not doing it for me is the actual frame.
Yeah, that's fair. The frame being also sketchy is a little bit off-putting.
Because the thing is that in my brain, the frame is not drawn. So why is it being made to look like it is?
We need to let you know somehow that this is a sketch.
I mean, the black and white sketch art does that quite well.
That's why the border's there, James, to help you out.
Okay.
You know who else can help you out?
Card Kingdom?
Cardkingdom.com. They're going to help you out with your singles needs anywhere in the world, or your new sealed product needs anywhere in the United States, or your old sealed products needs, again, anywhere in the world. If you go to cardkingdom.com/LRR, and if you ask for a button, they will give you a little 1-inch button, which if you order quickly will say 5-color bad stuff.
And it's a little like pie chart. It looks really good. It's a cute little button.
Yeah, you'd like it because you like us and you like supporting us over on Patreon, and we appreciate that. It helps us keep the lights on at patreon.com/loading-ready-run. It lets us do all these things and make all these silly podcasts and promote our silly opinions, which you've spent the last hour listening to. So thank you.
I agree. Thank you. Quick reminder that, again, June 2nd, starting at 11 a.m. Pacific, is the Loading Ready Run Modern Horizons 2 pre-release. So please do tune into that. If you are not already following our Twitch channel, just head over there right now, hit that follow button, and you will be notified when we go live. Otherwise, I would follow either at Loading Ready Run or at LRRMTG on Twitter, which you should be doing anyways. Thank you again to Nelson and Cameron for hanging out with me today.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Fun to be back in the talkie seat, but I look forward to going back to silent mode next week. I want to thank Jordan for getting these edited. I want to thank me for running the card reader, and I want to thank Heather for getting these things online and doing all of the podcast administration. Y'all have been great. Hope you have a good week because it's Monday, maybe where you are. I don't know. Okay, that's it. Goodbye.